Serious, teachers of Reddit, what red flags have you seen in your students? What happened? I'm a technology teacher, design and make. I had an 11-year-old student who was terrible at using scissors and couldn't thread a needle. She had very high grades academically, but something didn't seem quite right. I recommended she receive special assistance and a referral, and it turns out after testing that she had very little spatial awareness and almost no hand-eye coordination. After calling the parents in, we found that her mother was paralyzed and in a wheelchair. Only dad had come to parent interviews etc. And dad was very busy working to support them both. So no one had ever played any physical games or activities with her. She hadn't developed in this area and was intelligent enough to hide these shortcomings in previous school activities. Not a difficult fix. Lots of time doing crafts, throwing and catching balls, that kind of thing needed, but something that could have really held her back in the future. This sort of red flag would never have occurred to me, certainly different from all these angry sociopath kids. My mom was a second grade teacher and had a little boy in her class that would go full redrum and draw crazy things on his dry erase board. He would write things like kill with images of dead classmates. Upon asking the student why he was writing these things, he just replied with "she's telling me to." The scariest part was the boy was absolutely terrified. He didn't want to draw any of these things but felt obligated by this woman. My mom recommended him for a psyche eval and turns out he had severe schizophrenia. I had a teacher tell us, the entire classroom, that she doesn't send letters or notes home regarding a student's behavior because she once had a student come back the next day with bruises. I'm honestly so thankful for teachers like this. I didn't do too well on a bio test once, and my teacher wanted me to get it signed. Once she saw my hesitation, she withdrew immediately, asked if I would be in danger if I had it signed, and then never sent anything home again. Bless her. As an early years teacher, the worst thing I've seen is a child trying to hump others. For example, a child bends over, he walks up behind and thrusts into them. He gets on top of a child and proceeds to hump them, generally walking up behind them and weirdly thrusting his pelvis into others, pinning children down into corners and doing this. Sweet kid, but that behavior rang alarm bells. I reported it on 3 separate occasions before a report was taken from me, and it went, supposedly, further up the chain. Always suspected his sister was in fact a young mum, as the mother was nowhere to be seen. I met her twice in 2 years of caring for him. Forgot to say he once did this to my head. Had a high school student who was a well-known white supremacist wear a bulletproof vest to school one day. Quietly called administration to come take him from class. His father complained, "Where in the dress code does it say he can't wear a bulletproof vest?" That was a big red flag. Later that year, kid was expelled for extorting money from other kids by threatening them with a screwdriver. A year later, that student got shot in the face and lost his entire nose, and he's now in prison. I have a 7th grade student this year who bugged the heck out of me. He was that kid. He smelled bad, was disrespectful and disruptive, and generally made life miserable for us. Then, we found out about his background. At a young age, his mother tried to kill him several times. She got drunk and chased him with a knife, and he only escaped by locking himself into the bathroom. She tried to drown him. She used to put out cigarettes on him. Currently, he lives with his alcoholic father, who obviously hates the kid. He told me the other day that he spent the weekend going to AA meetings with both of his parents. I've made it a point to be kind to him now. I take a minute every day to talk with him and praise every positive action I see. I hope to make school something positive for him, because I can only imagine the heck he goes home to. Nota bene, I worked in a school for seriously emotionally disturbed children as an intern, so this is from the red flag already noticed department. 8-year-old with his own giant bodyguard who followed him around to protect other children from him. He was dangerous. 7-year-old who had never spoken one word due to abuse. 8-year-old with one leg shorter than the other due to mother breaking it when he was an infant and no medical attention. -7-year-old who constantly tried to molest other kids because that was the only love he'd known. That was my entire classroom. These kids broke my heart every day that they persevered and kept trying to learn and yet had no real future ahead of them. Yes, there are miracles, but these kids wouldn't see too many of those. Worst mistake I ever made was deciding to pursue my original career rather than go into said teaching. Very, very rewarding work. I was grading papers, and one of my students was exhibiting all the red flags that she intended to harm herself in the paper. She had turned it in days previously, and I had seen her looking down that morning, so I rushed her paper down to our school psychiatrist. She moved to pull the student out of class, but she had ditched school halfway through the day. Police were dispatched and caught her literally seconds before she carried out her plan. Thank God I didn't put off grading another day. On behalf of a lot of people, thank you for deciding to grade that day. I taught children with severe behavior disorders in a self-contained room for 15 years. Most will end up with a felony record, which was confirmed when I later taught at a jail and saw a few of them, but a certain few I plan on seeing on the channel one of these days. One of them would poop and hide his poop wherever he could, in his pockets, desk, etc. He had been physically shamed and gave a really bad vibe towards younger kids. He was in 5th grade. Of course, the white trash bus driver sat him in the back of the bus with preschool kids. When I told the bus driver this was a bad idea, she reported me to my principal saying I was bad-mouthing a student. Needless to say, the student was caught sexually abusing a 3-year-old girl a couple of years later and now is serving a long felony prison sentence for other abuses he perpetrated once he was 18. The bus driver and I had another run-in, but luckily she quit before I did. That is just one of 4 stories where the red flag was waving like crazy. May have to share a couple more. My colleague is a speech and language therapist and was working with a child with very poor attendance at appointments and a very poor background. The kid was 4 years old when she started seeing my friend after her teacher referred her in. The girl had really poor language skills and could barely hold a pen, but my colleague noticed her teeth were really bad and that she drooled a lot. Chatted to mum a bit more about her diet at the next appointment, and it turned out the girl wasn't eating solid food. She had only ever been given milk with a bottle. She was taken into foster care with her little sister not long after that, and they will stay in foster care till they're 18. Sadly, she had to have most of her baby teeth removed, but the couple caring for them are amazing and they're hoping to adopt them both. QHT the frick. Once had a parent find out that I'm gay, and B, I have some music industry contacts. They immediately offered me unlimited, unsupervised access to their 16-year-old son in exchange for helping him break into the music business. I was 35. I reported them immediately. So, I work in an elementary school in a very rough neighborhood. It gets way too real all the time. I think the first time this happened was when I witnessed a group of kindergartners very casually discussing the times they'd seen people get shot. Kid in elementary school who is just so angry all the time for no reason. He doesn't seem to feel any empathy for others. He saw another kid crying because they were upset about something and he just sat there smiling. I was giving a lesson one day and he walked over to ask a question as I'm giving the class instructions, and I asked him to sit down and I'd help him in just a minute. He stomped back to his seat yelling about how he hates me in this school because no one cares and we're all useless. This is a nearly daily occurrence. If you tell him he has to do something he doesn't want to do, he will yell, throw things and generally just melt down. He can't deal with life in a typical way. He always seems to be scowling. I feel bad for him because it has to be hard to be him. That kid really needs a therapist like yesterday. Lots of the usual about abuse, mental illness, poverty, etc. The one a lot of folks may not know about is the phone numbers. If a parent can't be bothered to keep a way to contact them updated with the school, we're going to be dealing with a headache of a student for the year. 20 years ago I had a kid in my kindergarten class that kicked my hamster. It was in one of those plastic ball things. He was a mean angry kid. He is in jail now. Sadly you could see it coming even then. Honestly, the kids I've taught who've gotten into serious trouble, one in particular was just sentenced to 6 years for debauchery, never showed any red flags. That's the scariest thing about teaching in my opinion. Poor hygiene always makes me wonder what the home life is like. I mean, Some 14-year-olds just stink. But when their hair is consistently greasy, teeth unbrushed, dirty and long fingernails, makes your heart break a little. My mum is a primary school teacher in Ireland, and she taught a kid in the 90s I think who was continually getting in trouble for little things and whose mother didn't give a crap what he got in trouble for. He killed his mother and as far as I know he's still in prison. I was putting my preschoolers down for nap near Christmas time, so we're all talking about what they want for Christmas or Hanukkah. We had 2 Jewish students, so I discussed them both equally. One student, who was living his grandparents because his mother was abusive, told me he wanted to play video games. Oh, like on a TV or in your hands, like a DS. He was 5, he sat up, very excited to tell me the story of how he used to have a DS and it was awesome. But one day some men broke into the house and stole it. It was so heartbreaking, especially because he seemed to react as if it happens a lot. I called his grandparents and got permission, but my husband let me give him his old DS he didn't use anymore and all the games he had for it. Kid in grade 1 had intentions of killing people and burning the school down. Not too sure how serious he was. I know he has older siblings but they weren't troublemakers. When other students started passing the word around he was gonna do these things, the school eventually expelled him. I don't know all the details of him being expelled. I do know his brother left the school a few years later, wasn't expelled. Haven't seen or heard of him since he was a little boy. When I taught abroad, one of the brightest and most liked students disappeared one day after a couple of weeks with what seemed like a bad cold. Not really a red flag, I suppose, but related. It was a one-room schoolhouse in a fairly remote village. Apparently, her mother accused the lunch lady of putting a spell on her daughter and pulled her out. Obligatory, not a teacher, but my grandmother. My grandmother taught 3rd grade for over 40 years. She loved every minute of it, except for this one kid. His name was Jason. She described this kid as a psychopath. She said he would always draw pictures of knives, guns and death on the desks. One time he tried to cut himself with scissors. Another time he tried to stab another classmate in the chest with a sharpened stick. Of course, she reported every incident to the administration. But this was in a time before Columbine, so they did nothing other than suggesting counseling. During a parent-teacher conference it was revealed that his parents lived in fear of him because he would hoard sharp objects in his room and threaten to stab anyone who tried to get near him. His parents also revealed that he killed animals for fun. Anyways, this kid was later charged with torturing and murdering 6 different women and went to prison for a long time. I've got a 14-year-old male student that loves everything to do with war and death. The first time I saw his writing I was shocked. He was writing about killing people, recently helping students around the room, and I see his work. Which is nicer, a sniper rifle or a bomb? Normally a kid like that would be thrown out, but this is Japan. Crap don't work like that. From what I've heard about America, I'm sure he would be expelled by now. Scary thing is that he looks like a normal kid. A kid always thinking about murder. So apparently this is normal. Guess I should have talked about the kid that, in the middle of class, would stand up and jump onto the windowsill and act like an animal before jumping out the window. When I asked my Japanese co-teacher, he just said yeah, he's just like that. I don't find this too rare. 2 chances. He's gonna be a murderer. Or, he's going to be a brilliant gore writer who I'll probably follow like a cultist. Graded a lab report by a SE Asian kid, then graded another later that was eerily similar down to the typos. Noticed it was another SE Asian kid. Talked to my fellow TAs, compared the papers of the first 2 Asian kids' friends, and before long there were literally dozens of nearly identical lab reports all across the department. You know they were all cheating together because they had the same writing errors. You haven't known chaos until dozens of Asians are harassing you in the department because they think it's xenophobic to flunk most of the Asians in an OChem class. Department laughed them out thankfully. As far as I know, the ringleaders were removed from the university. They might have not been if they had apologized, but they were obnoxious and refused to take responsibility. And everyone else failed the court and went on academic probation. If you're gonna cheat, at least rewrite the lab report you're sharing with 50 people. It's not always the loud ones that act out either. My parents started fighting when I was 10 and my mom started telling me all these things she suspected my father was doing behind her back. It really changed my view of my dad and caused a huge strain on our relationship for years. In the end she ended up being the one cheating. I was tired and came to school and would fall asleep in class and fail tests. No one seemed to care. I spent all of my time trying to figure out what I could do to make them see eye to eye and understand each other. It consumed me and caused me to sink into depression and anxiety. I felt like I had failed because I couldn't fix it. Sometimes I still feel guilty now for not being able to save everyone. My little brother still hasn't come back from it. TLDR. It's not always the angry and loud ones. And don't fight in front of or through your children. I was a teacher at a preschool, and one 4-year-old girl liked to play horsey with the boys during free time. Only she would make them lay on their backs and bounce up and down on them. And that's how we found out her dad was abusing her. I'm not quite a teacher, but I look after a group of 8th graders. I'm a prefect. One of them was a really angry kid who would always try to fight people. He would never study, despite the protests of his family, and hated school. Most people thought he was just an angry kid, until one day he let slip that he'd been self-harming and had suicidal thoughts. He withdrew from school to get counseling help and we haven't seen him since. As we were walking to the library, a student noticed a baby bird had fallen out of a nest. He proceeded to pick the baby bird up and bite its head off. Seriously. After an out-of-town track meet, the coach took my sister's team to have their picture taken at one of those places where they could dress up and do a theme picture. The way my sister tells it, the girls wanted to dress up as something wholesome but the coach was very insistent that they do the Wild West theme. They didn't, so he dressed as a sheriff and 20 of these 14-18-year-old girls dressed as Wild West prostitutes. My parents were obviously furious. When a kid shows up with a couple cuts, ain't no deal. When a kid starts showing up with cuts up their wrist and arms, maybe keep an eye on it. When the number or cuts and scars all over the kid just keep getting higher, and the kid who was once a 90+ average student is dropping to near failing, something is probably up. From the POV of a student, I tried killing myself once and was admitted to the hospital. It was this whole big thing and I missed a lot of school from it. Most of my teachers were understanding that since I basically just vanished from school, something serious had happened. But I had one teacher who assumed I had dropped the class and decided to completely disregard me as a student in that class. I ended up failing that class because she refused to be understanding of my situation regardless of how good my grades were before everything went to crap. Basically what I am saying is that to all the teachers on this thread, a little reaching out when a student starts to pull away can make a huge difference. My mom worked as a special education teacher's aide when I was in elementary school. There were a lot of sad stories, Down syndrome kids who wore the same filthy clothes, underpants and all, for an entire week, and there were some that made me realize the world could be a truly terrible place. One of the worst I can remember involved a profoundly disabled girl. She was a near drowning victim and was left blind, deaf, and severely intellectually impaired, who was found to have gonorrhea. She was 11. And the reason it was discovered was because my mom saw genital discharge when she changed this child's diaper and reported it. I have no idea what happened to this poor girl. Maybe her next foster family was better. Maybe she went to a group home. During my student teaching, a little boy, 3, walked up behind me, smacked my butt, and said, "Nice butt, sweetie," made the click click noise and walked away. Fast forward to about 3 weeks after that. Same classroom kid comes over and grabs my boobs. Apparently he has a single father that doesn't keep his activities away from Jania. I teach at a private PS8 Catholic school in New England. Just last week I had a kindergartner, age 5, walk up to a framed group picture, hold his hands like a gun, and shoot each person individually, moving down the line, slowly, looking each person in the face before the shooting motion. All the right steps were taken after this, but I couldn't believe my eyes. A girl kept getting in fist fights with her girlfriend. I taught both of them and begged them to stay apart. They broke up and graduated in June. One was murdered by her boyfriend in October. I taught in a small primary school island, 35 kids in the school. 14 in my class, age 9-12. After the Christmas holidays we got a new kid in from another school, a 9-year-old. No reason given for the change of schools during the school year even though he was coming from a school that was only 5-10 minutes away and closer to his house. On his first day I tried to get him settled, label all his books, show him around, introduce him to the other kids, tell him about our routines. He had no interest. I tried talking to him. Are you excited? Are you nervous? His response was I don't get nervous. He had no interest in interacting with the other kids. He made no attempt to make friends. He'd throw evil looks at kids in the class etc. The World Book Day came up a few weeks later and they had to dress up as their favorite character and bring in their favorite book. He brought in Five Nights at Freddy's, along with a mask. I had never heard of it but given his very low ability level I was surprised he was reading such a big, complicated book. I don't think he could read it at all. He just wanted to show it off. I was a little unnerved by it and looked it up, realizing that it's pretty scary stuff for a 9-year-old. But I had 10-year-old in the class playing GTA etc so I'll let it go. Fast forward a few weeks and they are doing a dramatic piece for 1916. They developed a character and wrote diary entries as the character. His diary was covered in red blood. His entry was about seeing his family being killed and how happy it made him. Then he decided to take revenge on the killers and stabbed them. Then killed himself. A bit odd for a 9-year-old. So I had a look at his free writing copy. A copy they write in every day that I don't check for spelling, grammar etc. To encourage a love of writing. It was all talk of killing himself and others. Creepy stalking a la Five Nights at Freddy's. Hunting people down and killing them. Big constant talk in the background of kill me now, I need to die. I brought it straight to the principal, made an appointment to speak to the parents and called the psychologist. Ma'am told me she thought he'd grown out of it. Sorry, what? I couldn't believe she knew about it. Apparently his older brother is autistic and always talks of suicide and he picked it up and would repeat what he heard. Age didn't understand my concern at all. She didn't want to be referred to the mental health unit available and didn't want me to talk to him about it. I finished up in that school a few months later, with him being under the attention of the psychologist. But without the parents' permission not much could be done from what I was told. The kid really gave me the creeps. I didn't think he was suicidal. I got the feeling that he wanted someone to see it and to watch their reaction. TLDR. I had a 9-year-old sociopath in my class, I think. For privacy purposes, I will call the student Sally Smith. I was starting my 3rd year of teaching. The charter school asked that we have home visits with the students either before the school year began up until 2 weeks into the year. The CEO really stressed going to their homes. I honestly don't feel as if this is a safe practice. I see how beneficial it is. However, that's a fine line to cross. This particular family wanted to meet at the school instead of at their home. My first red flag was when we introduced ourselves. The child pulled out a dry erase board with all the strategies I could use to help her behavior. She informed me that to get her attention I could call her Ms. Smith. Remember, she's 8. She said her last teacher did that and it worked. She had an unhealthy obsession with Chick-fil-A as well. She had trigger words that would send her running around the room. Chick-fil-A. Death. Dying. Dead. I said, deadline once and there she went, flipping chairs and running. I ended up allowing her to run around the gym in the mornings and at times she would just fall asleep afterwards. At one point, when it got really terrible, we separated her from the rest of the class into a guidance room. You could hear her kicking the door and screaming from down the hall. The mother was never in the picture, so when we called Dad, his amazing advice was, I don't know. Do whatever you do with crazy people. She was taken out of the school into a classroom that could suit her. I had heard later on that she moved in with her grandma and was essentially kicked out of the specialty class. I have no clue where she has ended up. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.